Hello, everybody. It's me, Brian M. Hauser, back with you for your first look episode of the week, previewing the Seahawks against the Packers on Sunday Night Football. You know, ironically, we are starting late because I had the harebrained idea to upgrade my Xfinity modem, and the reason was because it was supposed to be more reliable. And sure enough, I won't bore you with all those details. I've still got an Xfinity agent chatting with me, and I think we're good. I think we're good. I really wanted to wait and make sure before I started this live stream because it would be really annoying to have that get cut off. But at the end of the Big Ray's Rewind show, all of a sudden the internet was not working and we were still live. So I don't even know if that worked. Hopefully you guys were able to hear the end of Big Ray's Rewind. I don't know, but we are back. So this is such a huge game for the Seahawks. It's a huge game, not just for this season. It's a huge game just for kind of re-entry into relevance, right? Like, this is a game where they've had a number of chances this year. Like, they started off 3-0. They go to play Detroit on Monday Night Football. That was this opportunity. And I remember sitting there on the Detroit riverfront and talking to Robert Mays, doing the show outside, and Robert Mays predicting. It's the only time I've asked him to predict a game, and he predicted the Seahawks would beat the Lions. That was where we were at that point. And then it was just a big old egg from the defense in that game. And that was the first kind of face plant. I thought the offense looked amazing, but I think a lot of national folks actually thought they may have even respected the Seahawks a little bit more after that game. They had a bunch of injuries. There's a lot of reasons why that was what it was. And then you had the Giants game, terrible. Then in quick succession, they were back on prime time against the 49ers on Thursday Night Football at home. And the memory that people walk away from that game with is the home field advantage is gone for the Seahawks. There were more 49ers fans there than it seemed like there were Seahawks at times. The team just didn't look like they belonged on the field with the 49ers. And that was just kind of like, okay, the Seahawks aren't ready. And then they go back and they have some bad stuff go on. They play poorly, but then they have this big blowout win against Atlanta. And they come home for a Bills game that was nationally televised. It was a game of the week kind of thing. And they just get their doors blown off. They're hiking balls over their head. They're stepping on each other's feet. They're unable to score any points inside the 4-yard line in multiple red zone possessions. It was awful. And so since then, they've built back up. They've built back up steadily, and they've beat some decent teams. But this is their next chance. This is their next chance to protect their home field. This is their next chance to demonstrate that they can play with a good football team, and the Green Bay Packers are a good football team. And so at this point, we find out. We find out together on Sunday night if this Seahawks team is indeed ready for prime time. So with that in mind, let's dive in to a first look previewing the Seahawks game against the Packers. I've got to get out of this chat. It's driving me crazy. Let's get into previewing this Seahawks game versus the Packers. And there's a bunch that I found out. So one of the things I will share with you all, just take you behind the scenes a little bit. When I write my tail of the tape every week, every Tuesday now is when I sit down to when the Seahawks don't have any press conferences, so I have time. I sit down and I basically go through all the standard, data, analytics metrics of comparing these two teams one by one, kind of fill it all out. I then go through and I look at coverage tendencies, zone versus man. I look at how these teams play, how the receivers do against those different types of coverages. I look at their pressure rates on defense and offense. I look at trends and where things have changed. I look at PFF grades. Yes, I still look at those. I think it's useful. It's not the only thing I look at, but I do look at it and see if there's been any changes in how people have been playing. I look at the injury report and look at who's been playing and who hasn't and what's changed over time. At this point, I'm spending like 6 hours, researching and writing. This was an epic one yesterday. Just got really deep into it because there's not as much history to go on between these two teams. Mike Macdonald, as far as I know, has not faced LaFleur. And so when we get into looking at Matt LaFleur, I always forget whether he's Matt or Mike. I might mess that up during the show, but it's Matt LaFleur. I don't think Mike Macdonald's faced him, and I don't think vice versa. That could be a good thing for Mike Macdonald. That could be a good thing for Matt LaFleur. I don't know. I went back and, traced through Matt LaFleur's coaching heritage, his tree where he came from. And there's people that will tell you he's a Sean McVay hire for the Packers. Well, he did OC for Sean McVay for one season with the Rams, but I think I'd give him more of a Shanahan tree. He was part of the Mike Shanahan coaching staff in Washington. It's back like the RG3 time frame, right? And when you watch Mike LaFleur, right? Is it Mike? It's Matt. God dang it. Matt. All right. I have a brother-in-law named Matt, so I'll just have to remember that. Matt. When you watch Matt LaFleur's offense, it reminds me more of Shanahan's offense. It's very run-centric, and I'm going to share some things there, especially early down, that should grab your attention and are going to be a key part of this game. And yet, I think he's kind of his own guy. When I watch a like Bobby Slowick offense, which I don't really want to do this year, but I see his ancestry. Like I see where he's coming from. And like a lot of these guys, they come from these coaching trees and they just look a lot like who they coached for. I think Matt LaFleur is a little bit of his own man. I think he's certainly been influenced, but I've seen him really have, a wide variance to how he'll approach a game. I think he's shown a lot of different tools in his tool belt. I was most impressed maybe by what he did earlier this year when his quarterback, Jordan Love, got hurt in the first game. And they were played without Jordan Love for multiple games. There's not a lot of teams that can survive losing their quarterback for one game, let alone multiple games. And along the way, winning. And that's exactly what they did with Malik Willis at quarterback. They first beat the Colts, then they beat the Titans, and they did it with like a ground chuck style offense. They rushed for 261 yards against the Colts. They rushed for 188 yards against the Titans. And I don't care that the Colts and the Titans aren't that great. The Titans defense was actually pretty good for a lot of this year. And the Colts have some decent players on that side of the ball, and I just was impressed by what Matt LaFleur was able to do, without his starting quarterback, who's the guy that makes everything go. So, point being, I think this guy is a really interesting matchup with Mike Macdonald. I think he can adjust. I think he's got a lot of tools to use, and I think Mike Macdonald does as well. So maybe like the story of this game. Oh no, my modem is flashing. That's not a good sign. Hopefully I'm still with you guys. All right, it's back. So I think that we're gonna see a real battle of the wits, battle of two really smart coordinators going against each other. First thing that I wanted to share with you all is that as I was digging through, there's a few things that you know, I'll show you all the numbers, and if you look at the season long numbers, this just looks like a mismatch. And so I'll show you those. We'll get to those, but I don't think that really tells the story. So what I did is, you know, I grabbed looking at their the EPA of these two teams basically since week 9. So that's what, like 5-6 weeks of football since then. And this to me is a really accurate picture of what this game will look like. On offense, you've got a Packers team that 5th ranked offense, whether it's overall EPA per play, they're also 5th in EPA per dropback and 5th in rush EPA. So like I said, they can beat you a variety of ways. We'll talk about their weapons. Josh Jacobs, who will bring nightmares back to Lumen Field from the last time he was here. But look at the Seahawks defense. This is where things are different. If you're just looking at the overall arc of the season, Seahawks defense looks completely overmatched against the Packers offense. Well, the Seahawks defense is actually higher rated over this period of time. They're the 2nd ranked defense in EPA per play in the league, behind only the Eagles, and they're right there with the Eagles. 5th in EPA per dropback and 3rd in rush defense, rush EPA. So this is really a like strength versus strength kind of deal. And when you get into those situations, one, you're generally in for a good game. Like, you've got two teams that have multiple things that they do well. They're playing with confidence. They can handle some adversity and respond back to it. There's going to be punches and counter punches. So that's going to be friggin' fun. Like, one way or another, I think that will be fun. I don't expect either side from a Packers offense and Seahawks defense. I don't think either side will necessarily like really get it over on the other one. I think this will be probably a really hard fought back and forth. The other side of the ball, interestingly, Packers defense is, again, pretty highly rated. There's a lot of things I'm going to talk to you about that I think they're hidden. They're hidden in the numbers with the Packers defense. And I'll talk to you about those in a second, but let's just look at this for now. EPA per play over the last few weeks, since week 9, Packers defense is 14th. Their dropback EPA is 18th. Their rush EPA is 11th. That's like a mediocre defense, all right? And the Seahawks offense has certainly not been better. Like this, the Packers defense, if you just look at the numbers, since week 9, have an advantage over the Seahawks offense. What I'm going to hopefully be able to show you over the course of this show is why I actually think the opposite is true. I believe the Seahawks offense will enter this game with an advantage over the Packers defense. Some of that's personnel related, some of that's injury related, some of that is turnover related. So let's start there. And then I'm going to get back. I've got so much to share. Like I found a lot of things that I at least I thought were super interesting in my research yesterday. So we'll talk about that. But the thing I wanted to share there is turnovers. So the Packers defense, and I don't know if I've got this somewhere easily I can find it. I don't know where. I'll come back to it. But what I can tell you is the Packers defense has been very turnover reliant. So they started the season with 6 straight games where they had at least 2 turnovers. And in 5 of those 6 games, they had 3 turnovers. 3 turnovers. I mean, that's a lot in a game. To give you some idea, like the Seahawks, how many times have they had 3 turnovers in a game this year? I'll tell you, like takeaways. It's happened twice. It happened against the Broncos and it happened against the Falcons, right? So if you're getting 3 turnovers, you're going to win almost every time. And in fact, interestingly, the Packers lost 2 of those games. They lost to the Eagles and they lost to the Vikings during that span. And we'll talk about part of the reason why that's happening. But they've been very turnover reliant over their last. So again, at least 2 turnovers in their first 6 games. In their last 7 games, they've only done it twice. And Xavier McKinney, their safety, really, really good player from the Giants. They signed in free agency, one of the best free agent signings of the year for sure. And he started with 5 straight games with an interception this year. That is not easy to do. He's only had a couple 2 since then, right? So still good. I mean, he's still a very good player, but you kind of get these takeaways kind of go hot and cold, you know, they come and they go. And so EPA, if you don't know this, EPA is highly influenced by turnover plays. And so the Packers defense has been, I know has been elevated by the fact that they've had these turnovers, these takeaways. Well, one of the numbers that is not influenced by takeaways in the same way is success rate. And let me remind people what success rate is, why. Like, I know there's all these numbers and you're trying to keep it straight. So why does success rate matter? Why do I like it personally even better than EPA? EPA, by the way, is expected points added. If you don't know, you can look it up, read the history of it and all that stuff. Success rate is essentially a measure of whether for each down you get the distance that is considered successful. So I can give you the exact definition. Football. Let me just get this up. So we all have the same numbers. Yeah. I just want to make sure I got this. So a first down successful play gets you 50% of the needed yards. So that's I thought it was less than that, but at least what I'm reading here is that it is 50% of the needed yards. Okay, that seems right. So that would be getting to 2nd and 5 or better. Second down means you get 70% of the needed yards. So that depends on how many yards you have to go. It's not at that point, you could be 2nd and 10. And if you get 7 yards, that's a successful play. So it varies based off how many yards you have to go after that. 3rd or 4th down is about getting a conversion to first down. And so why I like this metric is because it really measures the efficiency of an offense and the repeatability of what they're able to do. And I could include it in my tail of the tape, but it's just like so many numbers. I try to generally you're going to see success rate tightly couple with EPA. But in the case of the Packers, that's not exactly true. And why is that? Well, specifically the Packers defense. When the Packers defense, when you look at that and you look at their drop back EPA, which is again how they defend the pass, they're 11th in the NFL in drop back EPA. That sounds like a pretty good passing defense. Well, guess what their drop back success rate is? Put it in chat. Guess what their drop back success rate is? They're 11th in EPA. Those 2 numbers are usually pretty similar. To give you an idea, I'll tell you while I'm waiting for you to guess, the Seahawks are 9th in drop back EPA. They are 13th in drop back success rate. So that's like a pretty similar measure. Well, I'll tell you, the Packers rank dead last in the NFL in drop back success rate. Dead last. So 32nd in the NFL. And as you look a little bit deeper into their pass defense, there are some real holes at the linebacker spot. They've been dealing with some injuries. So why don't we talk about those for a second? And then I'm going to get back to first down, early down, which is a pretty important part. But injury-wise, I'm going to go through a couple of these, and I will just talk you through this instead of showing you because it's just text. But they've got 3 safeties that they play pretty regularly. Xavier McKinney. They've got Javon Bullard, who I loved in this draft from Georgia. He's been starting for them, playing some nickel for them as well. And then they have Evan Williams. Okay. Well, Javon Bullard left the Lions game last Thursday with a walking boot and crutches. He is very unlikely to play. They thought they were going to lose him for the season. Last update was that it was week to week. Well, week to week means he's not playing this week. So I think Javon Bullard's going to be out. Evan Williams exited with a concussion and as of Monday was in the concussion protocol. So I think it's very possible that the Packers will be without 2 of their 3 safeties. They also have been without their best cornerback. Jair Alexander has been out with a knee injury. We're going to find out today what his status is, but not clear that he's coming back. They've also been without Edgerrin Cooper, rookie linebacker, who has been a really, really good player for them. Maybe the best linebacker in this draft class. He's been out for a while. And then what that all meant was that they had to shuffle everything in the secondary. So Keyshawn Nixon had been playing outside corner. He'll be moved back probably to play nickel and with Bullard out. Carrington Valentine and Eric Stokes ended up playing some corner. These are not names that you necessarily know well. And then Zane Anderson, a special teamer, he played safety once Williams left the game. He's got 61 career defensive snaps in his career. So 61 defensive snaps in his career. 53 of those came against the Lions. So this guy has not played that position. Don't know what they're going to do, but take all that and put it together for a second. Dead last in the NFL in drop back success rate. Heavily reliant on turnovers, and they're not getting as many turnovers as they were to start the season. They got a huge influx at the beginning. They're not getting as many near now. Then look at the fact that they've got the majority of their secondary is injured. We'll see if Jair Alexander comes back. That would be a big boost, but we'll find out. Okay, so now you've got all that. You put it together. Let me sprinkle a little bit more on top. Where do you think this team ranks in terms of pass rush? In terms of pressure rate? So let me find it in here. There we go. So the Falcons, sorry, not the Falcons. We'll talk about the Falcons in a second. The Packers rank 29th in the NFL in pressure rate. Okay? So the Falcons rank 29th in the NFL in pressure rate. You want to know the other teams that the Seahawks have faced have been similar pressure rate? It has been the Cardinals, which are 25th, the Patriots 28th, and the Falcons 30th. How did the Seahawks offense play against those defenses? How did Geno Smith play against those defenses? If you can't create pressure and you don't have a lot of your secondary, and even when you do have your secondary guys, these are not generally like, outside of Alexander and McKinney, these are not game breakers. So I think that the way I put it in my article on hawkblogger.com, weakness meets strength. I think that the Seahawks passing attack has a big potential advantage in this game. And I think that the offensive line doing what it's been doing, I think that Rashawn Gary is their best pass rusher. I think he's got maybe like 5 sacks or something. It's not a lot. To give you an idea of their best pass rusher, Rashawn Gary has 34 pressures on the year. There are 5 Seahawks that have 34 or more pressures on the year. So he wouldn't even rank, like he would rank at the bottom of the top of top 5 for the Seahawks pass rushers. And that's their best pass rusher. So that's like one big initial piece that I wanted to just drop with you, that like, you're not going to, I'm pretty sure you're not going to get that from anybody else that put these dots together about what might be one of the biggest matchup advantages for Seattle in this game. Now, let's talk about one that I'm just fascinated to see. All right. This one I am fascinated to see. So remember how I was talking about where Matt, I'm going to get that name right again, Matt LaFleur, his coaching tree comes from, what his tendencies are. If you want to know who Matt LaFleur is, look at this. This is a early down pass frequency chart, courtesy of Ben Baldwin on running backs still don't matter, rbsdm.com. Okay. So this shows the early down pass frequency for each team. I'll zoom in a little bit so you guys can see what I'm seeing a little bit better. You'll notice a couple things. One, Seattle is 6th in the NFL. The Bengals are way up there, the most pass happy. Then the Browns, the Vikings, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and then the Seahawks. All right. And then the Bills and stuff. So it's not exactly bad company who the Seahawks are keeping. No one wants to be the Browns, but I think there's personnel issues there more than coaching issues. But if you get all the way down to the bottom here, Green Bay Packers, by some distance, have the lowest early down pass frequency in the NFL. They are going to run the ball more often on early downs than any team in the NFL. Closest team is the Eagles, and that's still a pretty big gap between those two. The Lions, if you're curious, they are 5th lowest, so a little bit of difference there. Steelers, like just different styles, right? The closest team there is, like from a coaching tree, is the 49ers. The 49ers are, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they're 10th highest in terms of, well, 10th lowest in terms of pass rate, 10th highest in terms of run rate on early downs. McVay, and why I just don't think McVay is a good, even though he coached there with him last, I don't think that's as good of a comp for Matt LaFleur. McVay is definitely more pass happy on early downs. So I think this is a guy that wants to really establish the running game. And look at the efficiency. Now I'm showing you a different chart. This is a chart that is showing you drop back EPA moving up. So the higher you are here, the better pass team you are on early downs. The next axis here is rush EPA. So to the right means the farther right, you are a highly efficient run team on early downs. Oh boy, look at who is in the top most right of this chart. And by a long shot, it is the Green Bay Packers. The most efficient early down football team in football. All right. So the Lions are similar rush efficiency on early downs, the Eagles as well. So you see that they're similarly pushed to the right here on early down. So you're getting a team that is as good as the Lions or the Eagles early down as a run team. But the only team that is better on drop back efficiency, now this is moving up, the only team that's higher on this is the LA Rams and Sean McVay. Interestingly, the next one after the Packers would be the 49ers with Kyle Shanahan. So And if you're wondering, the Seahawks are way down here. One of the least, from an EPA perspective, effective early down teams in football. And so what are you going to do? I think this is a huge point for this game, because while you're saying, oh my gosh, that's pretty scary, that's a really good, really efficient offense, it's good normal reaction to have. What if I told you that Mike McDonald's defense had the second best early down EPA per play in the NFL since week 9? The number 1 run defense on early down EPA. And the second best overall. Yes. And then the number 1 run defense on early downs. So again, strength against strength. That's what makes this fun. So you're going to have these two coaches. And if you like, you guys have all been watching these games. The Seahawks have been eviscerating early down plays from every opponent they've faced over the last 5 weeks, including Sean McVay, including Kyle Shanahan. People forget that Rams game they lost. The Seahawks forced 7 3-and-outs in that game. That was the most 3-and-outs. Like, that had only happened one other time in 115 games that Sean McVay has been a head coach. They only scored 13 points in regulation on offense in that game. Like, yes, the Seahawks lost, but it wasn't because Sean McVay. That was because of a bunch of other things. We're not going to get into that right now. But point being, this is the best early down defense in the NFL right now. They're going against the best early down offense. How fun is that? Like, I think that's a ton of fun. I can't wait to see what happens in that. Another thing I'll bring up here is that the Packers are a predominantly zone coverage team. So you're going to see a lot of zone from the Packers. And one of the things that was an underrated aspect of this last Seahawks game against the Cardinals, yes, there was good pass protection. Yes, there was a good run game. But we saw Geno Smith, for I think the first time this year, really leverage the check down, really leverage the underneath passing game. And in fact, I kind of want, if you guys are willing to wait, I can go over to ftnfantasy.com because I've got a subscription to Stats Hub, and I can find this out. I think that was probably one of his highest check down rate games of the season. And as I look at Geno Smith, by the way, H code HBAM will get you 15% off your own subscription to FTN Fantasy. Gets you Stats Hub, gets you DVOA, gets you the Discord channel, all sorts of great stuff. And it's not just for football. You can use it for baseball, NBA, all that stuff, golf. All right. So Geno Smith, actually, one of the coolest things about Stat Hub is it will show you tendencies and how often a player checks down. So if I sort by check down rate, Geno Smith is 14th in the NFL on the year, 13.5% check down rate. Let's see what he did just in week 13. All right. It's probably going to make me look foolish and maybe it won't be higher, but for my money, it sure seemed like he was checking down more often. Okay. Geno Smith. This is week. Okay, hold on. This is week. Yes. All right. Geno Smith. Wait a second. Why does it say 2 weeks? Hold on. I know this is exciting to watch. Stick with me. Yes. Geno Smith, 13.5% on the season, 14th ranked in the NFL in check down rate. Against the Cardinals, a 30% check down rate, third highest in the NFL last week. So I see that as a really big step for him, and that the fact that they had success doing that was big because they're seeing so much zone defense. Nobody wants to play man against this Seahawks team. The other thing that's been happening with zone defense is that JSN is really effective in finding those holes in the zone, and he has just taken off since teams have really manned up and really tried to take away DK Metcalf. JSN becomes more prominent. What are the other things that a zone defense allows? Well, it can allow the screen game to take off. We talked about this before the Arizona game, if you remember. What you can do with the screen game is you can flood a zone. You can put additional blockers, additional players, and if you have a zone defense, people are not going to necessarily match up with who's over on one side. They're basically guarding a space, a zone. And so now you can have a screen game come to life. And we saw that against the Cardinals. Multiple, these weren't just the little, tunnel screens to JSN that Ryan Grubb had been spamming the last time they played the Cardinals. We saw a very standard screen to the left to Charbonnet that was like a 20+ yard gain. Those can potentially come to life. So, and then the last thing would be tight ends. And here's something I want to show you all relative to the Packers and specifically to how they defend that spot. Well, let me do this so you can see a little bit better. Packers 29th in the NFL in DVOA in defending the tight end. All right. One of the worst teams in football in defending the tight end, and also 19th against defending the running back as a receiver. That is also not great. At least not great for the Packers. So again, a lot of signs pointing here to some of the things that are zone beaters being things that the Seahawks just have started to command. And I think that also is a good sign for the Seahawks offense in this one. Let's look at some other pieces because there's a lot to talk about in this game. So let's talk about, before we get off other players, Romeo Doubs is a really good receiver. He was still in the concussion protocol as of Monday, so keep an eye on that. He's one of their better players. They have a ton of receivers, so I don't think it's a make or break whether he's there or not. We're going to find out for the Seahawks whether Kenneth Walker is going to be back now or soon or not, hopefully today. And then Uchenna Nwosu, I would just say last game was kind of like his, shaking the rust off. I expect this game to be a little bit more back to normal. I would also just call out Michael Dixon. I don't know that he's out of the woods yet. Anyone that's had back issues knows that they don't just go away. And they can just come back at any point. So we'll kind of keep an eye out for that. Other pieces that I wanted to call out here. And by the way, if you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. I'd appreciate it. Make sure you give us a follow on TikTok. It's one of our new channels. We're trying to get to 1,000 followers so we can go live there as well. Thanks to Will Hart, who's been doing amazing work on all the shorts and reels he's been posting. Well, probably our most viral one is when I was talking about Kyle Shanahan being a trash coach for DK Metcalf, or for going after DK Metcalf, and all the 49ers fans so butthurt. I mean, Grant Cohen's got the easiest job in the world. If you say anything negative about the 49ers fans cannot help but engage with that content. So that was kind of funny. Anyway, a couple other notes that I want to kind of bring out to you. And these are going to be a little bit more random order, but the Green Bay offense, as good as I've been telling you it has been, they've scored 30 plus points in each of their last 3 games. Part of the reason they've been able to do that, some of it's who they're playing and those kinds of things, sure. But they also had been having a lot of issues with turnovers. And so they've only got 1 turnover in the last 3 games. Jordan Love, believe it or not, Jordan Love had, I'm going to make sure I get this right. Jordan Love had an interception in each of his first 3, 6, each of his first 8 games. He threw an interception in 8 straight games. And you might not believe this either. He's got a higher interception rate than Geno Smith. His interception rate's 3.4%. Geno's is 2.6%. But why nobody really is harassing Jordan Love that much about his high interception rate, they were, but they're not as much, is because he's got double the touchdown rate of Geno Smith. He has, his touchdown rate, I think, is like 6.4%, something like that, which is anything over 6 is elite level quarterback play in terms of putting points on the board. Geno's is like 3. He's had years where he's like over 5.5, but not this year, not so far. So Jordan Love's got 21 touchdowns to go against his 11 interceptions. But point being is, part of what's happened for the Packers is Jordan Love has gotten better at protecting the football. He still has the big plays, but he doesn't have the negative ones. And so it's going to be harder for the Seahawks to get those takeaways in this game. I don't think you're going to see the Kyler Murray mistakes that we saw from him. But the Seahawks defense is very confusing now, thanks to Mike McDonald, thanks to Ernest Jones, thanks to the safeties. And who knows? Like, this is a guy that has put the ball in the hands of opponents more often than almost any other starting quarterback in the NFL. So that could be a factor. But the fact that he hasn't been doing it lately is part of why they've scored 30 points in 3 straight games. They've also not just been a good passing team, they have rushed for 99 plus yards in 6 straight games and 8 out of 9. And keep in mind, this is Josh Jacobs, who the last time Josh Jacobs came into Lumen Field had like 230 yards rushing or something like that. And another, let's actually get the exact numbers. Let's get the exact numbers because it is so gross. This was back in 2022. The last time he was in Lumen Field, he went for 229 yards rushing and 74 yards receiving. So basically 300 yards of offense. That guy is tough. He's tied for the NFL lead in most missed tackles forced. He has 58 of those. So does Kenneth Walker, by the way. So you've got this kind of multi-headed monster there. They've got a bunch of receivers who are also good at forcing missed tackles. And Tucker Kraft, who is their tight end, is also a really good tackle breaker. So they got a lot of pieces there on offense that, are going to give the Seahawks some real, make their hands full for sure. So let me pull forward. Let's bring back this DVOA look. We get this every week, courtesy of FTN Fantasy, promo code HBAM. And you'll see here, again, this is where you're going to see, these are all full season numbers. So you're going to see a lot of advantages, but the Packers are the 3rd ranked team by DVOA in the whole league, right? That is no joke. They are the 3rd ranked offense. They are the 11th ranked defense. On offense, they're 4th on run. They're 3rd on pass. Like, this is not a team where you can just say, take this away and everything else will work. I do think, based off the early down stuff we talked about, is absolutely crucial that the Seahawks take away early down running from this Packers team. I think it's much harder to stop them if they're getting good yardage on the ground. Another piece that I don't think I put in my article, but this is one of the heaviest inside, between the tackles running teams in the NFL. So I think that's also a strength versus strength. The Seahawks have been really, really good at defending inside runs as of late. And so, I like this. Takes advantage of the Seahawks defensive tackles. It takes advantage of the Seahawks linebackers. All those things come into play on those inside runs. But getting back to it, special teams, offense, defense, run defense, pass defense, every single DVOA number that compares offense to defense, the Packers are advantaged over the Seahawks if you look over the course of the whole year. So this is where I'm saying, if you look at the full season numbers, you're going to be like, oh man, we're in trouble. Maybe we are. Maybe the Seahawks are. I think hopefully I've convinced you why I don't believe that to be the case. Why I think that the Seahawks actually have some pretty clear advantages coming into this one. Otherwise, I already talked to you about the tight end and running back, so we'll kind of move on from there. This is one note I will bring up. So I did look at the DVOA stuff since they only cut it by week 10, so I couldn't go back to week 9. But the Seahawks are the second ranked DVOA defense since week 10. They are third in pass offense and fourth in rush defense in DVOA. So again, if I told you that you had the second ranked defense, all of a sudden the Seahawks have an advantage. If I told you that they had the third ranked fourth ranked rush defense, that's even. If I told you that the third ranked pass defense, DVOA, that's even. So again, really depends on where you want to look at this team. So let's look at these two teams first with the Seahawks on offense, and we'll look at the bigger numbers here. So when you look at this, Seahawks have the ball. Again, passing numbers are where there's an advantage for the Seahawks. Seahawks are third in the NFL in passing yards. Packers 21st in passing yards allowed. Seahawks are 14th in yards per attempt. Packers 18th in allowed. Seahawks 5th in completion rate. Packers 25th in allowed. And I told you why I think the sack rate stuff's a little bit misleading, but the Packers do have a slight advantage there. The big thing here, turnovers. Packers third in the NFL defensively in taking the ball away. That is why they're able to do what they do. The other thing to pay attention to is they are a good run defense. This is not smoke and mirrors. They got Kenny Clark. They've got some good guys on the interior. They're rugged. So, this is a game where the Seahawks run offense, no easy tasks. Now, I think this is roughly equivalent to what the Cardinals run defense was last week, and the Seahawks did pretty darn well. So if they are able to run against this team, that would also be interesting. I'm kind of curious as I look here. I don't remember looking at this. Teams that have run effectively against the Packers this year. Well, the Lions ran for over 100 yards just last game. They beat them. The Dolphins and 49ers only had 44 yards and 39 yards on the ground. They both lost. The Bears had 179 yards on the ground, and they barely lost, 20-19 in Chicago. So it does seem like if you're, again, Lions rushed for 124 yards, they lost. Or the Packers lost. It does seem like the teams that have rushed well against the Packers have at least played them the closest and generally beat them. Now, that's another thing I wanted to mention before we move on to the defensive matchup is if you look at the quality of victory for these teams, it's kind of interesting. I admit I kind of came into my tail of the tape just feeling like the Packers are a cut above Seattle and their record is really good and they've beaten a lot of good teams. They're just a better team. Well, I went and looked at who they've beaten. They've beat the Colts, the Titans, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Bears, the 49ers, and the Dolphins. Okay, like those aren't exactly signature victories. When they've played good teams, the Eagles are a good team. The Vikings are a good team. The Lions are a good team. Those are the four legitimately good teams that they have played this year. Do you know their record in those 4 games? It's 0-4. And then you look at their record. Their record's like, you know, they're 9-4. Seahawks are 8-5. Seahawks are 8-5, and they absolutely blew the game against the Rams. They lost a game to the Giants that I don't think is indicative of who this team is, or at least maybe not now. There's other games that they blew. Like, Seahawks could easily be 9-4 or 10-3. Like, I don't think that's hard to imagine at all. So I do question a little bit about the quality of victory that they have. And I do question a little bit about when they've played really physical, good teams, they've lost. I think the Seahawks are becoming a pretty physical, good team, which I love to say and actually believe it to be true. Now, let's see. I'm checking to see if I have any other pieces here. Okay, I think we're good on that. So let's look at when the Packers have the ball on offense, all right? So something to be aware of, Jordan Love's never played in Seattle. Most of these Packers have never played in Seattle. And I think that's a factor. I expect it to be pretty lively in that stadium on Sunday. And we'll see. I think going across country, it also, by the way, may be raining. I think rain is in the forecast. I don't know what it's going to be like at 5 in the evening, but it's going to probably be chilly and it's going to probably be wet. I will look up. I did not look up for this game. I'll look up well, let me see. Hold on. I can get this at FTN Fantasy. I might as well take a quick look and see if I can pull this out. How has Jordan Love done in the rain? How has Jordan Love done in the rain? Let's take a look real quick. If I can't get it quickly, then I'll just say, don't worry about it. All right. Jordan Love has played 2 games in the rain this year. 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 93 rating. What is his normal rating for the year? Passer rating for the year is 96.4. So not a huge difference. Let's look at advanced numbers here for a second. Jordan Love. Interesting. He's averaged 265 yards passing per game, 2.8% interception rate. He's played pretty well in the rain. I don't know how rainy it was, but it seems like there's not a smoking gun there necessarily. All right, so let's look at the Packers on offense. Again, this is full season numbers, and this is why the Seahawks defensive ranks, they're going to be slow to catch up. They went high, and then they went low, and then they're back to high again, and the cumulative numbers take a little while to recognize recent trends. That's why I showed you some of those most recent numbers. Even with all that, there is some advantage here for the Seahawks in terms of on the pass side, their interception rate, right? Packers 28th in the NFL, mentioned that. Seahawks 14th. They've been intercepting the ball every game recently. Seahawks are up to 14th in turnovers forced. Packers are 16th in giveaways. So the turnover battle could be huge, will always be huge, and could be something to watch. Also worth knowing, the Seahawks are 7th in the NFL in defending explosive passes. So they have an advantage there in taking away some of these big explosive plays. Also be aware that the Packers are 5th in the NFL in explosive rushes. So Seahawks have to really be aware of that. The Packers have a very good offensive line. It is 3rd in the NFL in sack rate. So something to keep an eye on. I'll talk to you about some of the specific players there in a second. But so The piece that I wanted to mention here with the Packers is that they are 10th. The offensive line is 10th in pressure rate allowed and 5th in time to pressure, meaning that it takes on average 2.86 seconds for a player to pressure Jordan Love. That's 5th slowest, which is a good thing in the NFL. So Jordan Love has the most time to make his decisions, and that's usually a pretty good way to play quarterback. And they also are a heavy play action team. So they are 10th in play action rate. This is a team that's going to run early, play action off of it, run early, play action off of it. That's a big part of what they try to do. Now, this is what I was talking about with their run up the middle rate. They are 55.8%. They're toward the top in what percentage of their runs are between the tackles. And the Seahawks have done really well there. The guys that I want to call out that are potentially vulnerable, their center Josh Myers and their right guard Sean Ryan. So, you know, say what you want about PFF grades. Josh Myers had a 13 pass block grade against the Lions. Sean Ryan was in the 30s. And we've seen grades that low on the Seahawks offensive line. And guess what? Most of the time, it's warranted. So the fact that there's some weakness on the interior of that line, I think their strength with the Packers is always their tackles. I think getting pressure on the interior is going to be possible. And I think the Seahawks, better than almost any team in football, have the players to do it. Worth noting, Jordan Love has been sacked 2+ times, only 3 times this year. That's amazing. I mean, as a fan who's watched Geno Smith go through what he's gone through, unreal, the kind of protection that Jordan Love is getting. So that's kind of the piece there. Lastly, we'll look at special teams real quick before we wrap. And you'll see here, another thing that's an interesting note on the Packers, they only have 1 field goal over 50 yards all year. Does that come into play in a rainy, cold Lumen Field if it's a close game? Do they have the kicker that you need in that moment? So Jason Myers, on the other hand, ranks 6th in the NFL with the amount of 50-yard kicks he's made on the season. 10th overall in field goal accuracy. Packers kickers 24th. They've missed a bunch. So something to keep an eye on. The Packers are not so great in coverage. They're mediocre. They're 15th in net yards per punt. They're 13th in average kick returns. We'll see if the Seahawks renewed coverage teams are able to take advantage of that at all. So what does this all add up to, folks? I guess what I see is a Packers offense that's really, really good, really balanced, can beat you a number of different ways with a number of different players. A Seahawks defense that is really good, that can beat you a number of different ways with a number of different players. 2 coordinators that are head coaches for each of those units that are really smart and really good at adjusting, and they're going to be a huge chess match. Like, that's the story of this game. It's going to be amazing. I don't know. Everyone's going to focus on who's going to win that matchup being what wins this game. I think that could easily be kind of a stalemate type of matchup where, yeah, maybe the Packers put up some points, but the Seahawks also get them a few times. I think where this is going to come down to is the Seahawks offense against the Packers defense. And I think injuries for the Packers secondary will come into play. Seattle's and Geno Smith's willingness to attack underneath, take what they give in the zone defense, I think it's going to be big. I think Noah Fant could be a bigger name in this game. You won't hear me say that often, but I think he could be a factor. AJ Barner could be a factor in this game. And I think that the Seahawks run offense, I don't expect it to have 176 yards every game, but the blocking that I'm seeing from that group, I think they're going to be pushing 100 yards rushing every game. Like, we'll see. But I like what I'm seeing. I think there's going to be some hats on hats, as Ray would say. And I think the Seahawks can have a credible enough running game And I think Geno Smith can have a good enough passing game, especially with JSN. I think the Seahawks have a bigger advantage on offense than the Packers have when they're on offense. That's my initial read. And I will not give my prediction till we do Real Hawk Talk tonight, 6 o'clock with Nathan Ernst and Jeff Simmons. But you guys have been watching. I've been pretty accurate so far this year, and with all this research I do in breaking down these games. The last time I was wrong was the Jets game, and I was wrong on the score, but I really still don't think I was wrong on evaluating that game. I think the Seahawks should have lost that game. I think it was a really tough matchup at the time, and they were very fortunate to win, which I was thrilled that they did. But I think I've got a decent beat on this one. And I think Seahawks fans should be looking forward to a great matchup. And let's hope that the Seahawks come out of this game with some respect that they have not yet received from around the league. All right, everybody, if you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. Make sure you head over to jkboots.com. I don't think this showed last time, but I'll show it now. Use code HawkBlogger, get 10% off your favorite boot. Also get a chance to win. Yes, got to show it again. This Seahawks themed boots, you get 2, not just 1. And it's amazing. Bison leather, gray, blue tongue, blue laces. You got the HB logo there, green. Someone's going to get these soon. You got to use code HawkBlogger to get it. And we're also going to continue gifting boots to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation. We've already given 2 away. So keep on keeping on. A great gift. And if you don't need them yourself, if you know someone who's a plumber, an electrician, a construction worker, a logger, a firefighter, a police officer, like so many people, you'll make somebody really happy with this gift, by the way. So really, really amazing. Code HawkBlogger will get you that. And then I would just remind you, go to ftnfantasy.com, use promo code HBAM, get you all the access you need, 15% off, less than $8 a month. All this data that I just showed you and went through, so much of it comes from FTN Fantasy. I wouldn't be able to do it without those guys. So check it out, learn along with me. Last thing I will say, if you haven't gone to the Seahawks ticket registry that I've been creating, go to hawkblogger.com, sign up. You'll find the article there, Seahawks ticket registry. Let's make sure that these tickets are getting to other Seahawks fans. If you don't want to buy them, tell other people. Let's get word of mouth. Let's get as many people signed up as possible. If you are going to be a buyer, I'm sending out these tickets multiple times a day via email blast. Do not haggle, okay? Like, I know people don't have a lot of money. If you don't, I totally get it. You don't have to spend it. But we're going to really scare off these sellers if people are in there, like, ghosting them, like haggling the price. Like, these folks are giving up selling their tickets at the highest possible bid to sell them at basically face value or sometimes less than face value to make sure they go to a Seahawks fan. So let's not harass them. Let's not try to like make it even cheaper. If you don't want them at the price they're offering, then don't bother them. And so really, really appreciate if you guys can make that happen. Let's just try to keep the community positive and encouraging of this so that we can get as many Seahawks fans in those seats as possible. All right, everybody. Thank you again. Appreciate all the support. And I think I missed a super chat. I've missed a couple of these and I apologize. And Colin Ludstrom gave some Hawkblogger memberships yesterday. I forgot to recognize. Really apologize. There's so many things to keep in my mind. Gambling Goat says, I'm going to the game this weekend. Doesn't regular season game. Top 3 tips you'd give a first timer. Oh, good super chat here. For me, I mean, it's a little hard because it's a Sunday night game. Generally, I'd say make sure you get downtown hours early and pick a game to watch, like afternoon football, instead of fighting the crowds to get there right before the game. That's number 1. Number 2, I wouldn't park downtown. I generally would suggest parking like Columbia City or like University, depending on where you're coming from. Park near a light rail station. Take the light rail to the game so that you don't have to pay, a bunch of money for parking. That would be number 2. Number 3 would be find a place with good nachos. Because there's a lot of places that just put like cheese sauce on it, not good. So my approved nachos, I think Yard House has some decent nachos downtown. So that's one that I'd recommend. What's the other one? Gosh, Buckley's. Buckley's in Belltown has some decent nachos. They're a little bit of a walk to the game, but it's also kind of nice. If you do pregame, I would also recommend pre-gaming a little farther from the stadium and walking to the stadium down along the waterfront. It's a really nice way to get to the game. A lot of good stuff going on there. Seattle's done a good job of improving the waterfront. So those are my 3 big recommendations. So enjoy. Thanks for the super chat. All right, everybody. I'm Brian Nemhauser. Follow me on TikTok and a bunch of other places. This has been episode 262, your first look at the Seahawks at Packers. Take care, y'all.